me just illustrate over here. The color red is actually a functionality. It does a job. It's actually stands for connector position assurance. In short, a CPA. A CPA is a result of the qualification nature as well as the reliability and the safety nature. And essentially, it's a means by which an audible click can be heard, which is critical because it allows for an operator to know that the male and the female, or the header on the receptacle as it's called, are actually joined, mated, and locked, therefore allowing no discontinuity or no.
So even an inept technician like me would know that I got a secure, reliable
Absolutely.
connection.
Absolutely. You would know that the two halves have been mated and are secure, because the last thing, like I said in my comments earlier, is for a connection to be removed either for vibration or for any reason. This connection, if it's unmated, could lead to a loss in life. There are other elements in the connector design that we incorporate to ensure that the connectors do stay intact. So, for example, there is a feature that we call, that's kind of hidden from this view at this point in time. It stands for Terminal Position Assurance, TPA for short. And the job of the TPA is to ensure that when the terminals, such as the crimped wire terminals over here, once inserted into the receptacle housing, they don't come off for any reason, because that is another point of weakness. So to recap, there's 2 points of weaknesses. One is the connectors being together, and the second is when the wires get inserted into the receptacle body, they could fall off as well. To ensure that doesn't happen, the TPA is there.
You've shared with me this idea of the TPA and the CPA, both of those ideas related to assurance of connection and making sure that holds. There's this thing, something like the hokey pokey that I've heard about. I know that's not it, but I know that's something else that you incorporate in your designs to
Absolutely.
make sure that people can be assured about how they make the connection. Could you share that?
You must be referring to Poka-yoke, Paul.
Poka-yoke.
Poka-yoke.
Yes.
Poka-yoke is a Japanese methodology, a philosophy, a methodology of ensuring that the function of the connector is not compromised. In the case of battery cells and battery packs, there are many connections that is required to be made. It could be multiple boards of this nature where the signals are coming in from different battery cells. In order to prevent the wrong cable being plugged into a wrong receptacle, wrong header, a Poka-yoke methodology is used. And it's basically to do with the polarization or the keying or the coding aspect. Each connector housing has a special notch that can only mate to the corresponding receptacle. And the Poka-yoke is standard practice in the Amphenol connector design, so that when a operator or a technician or an OEM is assembling components, they do not make a mistake. Because again, to my point earlier, the BMS, given the fact that it's the heart, the soul, and the brains of the operation, a mistake here could lead to a fatality. We use the Japanese philosophy of Poka-yoke to ensure that there's polarization, to ensure that there's coding or keying, in other words, that allows only a specific receptacle to plug into a specific header. And the other element that we bring to the table is Amphenol has a full suite of cable harness capabilities. In addition to the flex assembly that Brian has over here, we also have complete cable harness capabilities, where we'll take connectors that I've displayed on the table over here and make a complete harness along with fir tree clips that attach to perhaps a plastic carrier. And the purpose of the plastic carriers is to ensure, again, that it's actually latched onto a particular fixture. But this capability resides in our factory in China, and we're more than happy to support customers when it comes to full end-to-end capabilities with connectors and cables.
You know, we've been talking about lithium-ion batteries, and I know that there's something that, as a company, you guys are very concerned with, of thermal runaway. Brian, could you tell us a little bit about what is lithium-ion battery thermal runaway? What is this issue? What's behind it?
Okay, so first of all, Paul, they're fairly rare events. To give you a sense of a point of reference, in the United States, internal combustion engine vehicles catch fire about once every 3 minutes. And this is NFPA data. An electric vehicle is almost an order of magnitude less likely to catch fire under various conditions, whether it's a collision or an overcharge event or some other damage event to the vehicle. But the real issue is that lithium-ion batteries, because they're new, and because when they decompose, they supply their own oxygen, they basically create new hazards for first responders to deal with. And that is, in the convention, the reason that internal combustion engines don't make headlines is because there's proper training and proper tools. So if there's an internal combustion engine on fire on the side of the road, the firefighters, they show up, they extinguish it with water, they de-energize the system, they cool it down, and they're in and out in an hour, or maybe even less, depending on the level of damage. With lithium-ion batteries, because they store so much energy, that stranded energy in an array, when you have either 400 prismatic cells or pouch cells in a large traction battery pack, or 4,000 of the small cylindrical types, all of those represent individual units of energy. So when one becomes damaged, that can cascade throughout the rest of the system. And because they're very hard to access, because they're basically the floor of the vehicle, it's very difficult to extinguish a fire event and then de-energize the system. It's a combination of a lack of training and a lack of tools that are available on the market today to deal with this new hazard. So Amphenol is very closely engaged with NFPA, with the U.S. Department of Energy and Department of Transportation, as well as a number of international labs to work on the failure physics associated with battery thermal runaway. We've developed a sensor technology that can detect the venting of a single cell in even a few seconds of the initiation of a failure event within the cell. When a battery cell fails, the gases that are released, regardless of whether it's a lithium iron phosphate, nickel metal cobalt, or say an NCA electrochemistry, they'll evolve a substantial quantity of these gases within a typical enclosure space. And those gases are at concentration levels that are like 2 orders of magnitude above what would be considered normal. So they're very easy signals to pick up. And then when we see those signals, we also know that there is other flammable and hazardous gases that are released from that cell. So we know we can give the battery management system an early indication that there is a fault that has resulted in venting that is posing an imminent threat to that particular environment.